In a world covered by thick ice and snow, deep in the Arctic, something extraordinary was about to happen. The alien forces believed they had finally won the war against humanity. For years they fought hard, unleashing powerful weapons and terrible attacks. They thought they had wiped out every last human. But in the icy wasteland, hidden from their eyes, lay a secret that would change everything. Inside a vast underground facility, rows of tubes glowed softly in the dim light. Each tube held a soldier frozen in a deep sleep. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were humanity's last hope, specially designed to protect Earth. They were called the Arctic Super Soldiers. These warriors were created with advanced technology, making them stronger, faster, and more skilled than any human before. As the alien ships flew over the Arctic, scanning the ground, they picked up strange energy signals. The aliens, with their big eyes and gray skin, were curious and confident. They believed they could easily crush anything left of humanity. "There's nothing here but ice," one alien commander said, sneering at his crew. "We'll destroy it all!" But they did not know that the soldiers were stirring awake. Deep within their tubes, the super soldiers began to feel the warmth of life returning to their bodies. A low hum filled the air, and the soldiers' hearts started to beat again. One by one, they opened their eyes, taking in their surroundings. The soldiers were confused but alert. They remembered their purpose, to protect humanity and fight for Earth. Sergeant Mark, the leader of the super soldiers, was the first to fully awaken. He looked around, seeing his fellow soldiers slowly coming back to life. Each one was a living symbol of hope and resilience. Mark felt a surge of determination. "We must be ready," he said, his voice steady. "The aliens think they have won, but they are wrong. We have to stop them!" As the soldiers gathered their strength, they discussed their plan. The Arctic was their home now, and they knew every ice crevice and snowdrift. "We will use our knowledge of this land," said Lieutenant Sarah, who had a sharp mind and quick reflexes. "The aliens have no idea what they're up against." Meanwhile, the alien forces landed on the icy surface, believing they could search freely. They had no fear, thinking they had conquered humanity once and for all. But little did they know, hidden beneath the ice, the super soldiers were readying themselves for battle. As the aliens marched through the cold, they were met with silence. They saw nothing but white snow and icy mountains. "This is easy," an alien soldier joked, looking around. "I expected to see more remnants of humanity. It seems they were nothing but a myth." Back in the underground base, Mark and his soldiers prepared for the fight. They put on their gear, checking their weapons and equipment. Each soldier felt the weight of their mission. They were not just fighting for themselves, but for every human who had suffered and fallen in the war. "Let them come," Mark said, a fierce look in his eyes. "We will show them the strength of humanity. They think they can erase us, but we will rise again." The soldiers cheered, feeling the fire of courage in their hearts. Outside, the aliens continued their search, unaware of the danger lurking beneath the ice. They joked and laughed, thinking they were victorious. But deep inside the Arctic base, a storm was brewing. The super soldiers were about to awaken and show the aliens that humanity was not done fighting. As the first light of dawn broke over the icy horizon, the stage was set. The super soldiers stood ready, united and determined. They would not allow the aliens to claim victory. The awakening of the Arctic super soldiers marked the beginning of a new battle, a fight for the very soul of humanity. With courage and hope in their hearts, the super soldiers prepared to confront the alien forces. They were ready to prove that even in the darkest of times, humanity could rise again. The awakening had begun, and their fight for Earth was just getting started. The Arctic air was cold and biting, but the super soldiers were ready. They stood together in the underground base, preparing for the first confrontation with the alien forces. Mark, the leader, gathered them in a circle, his face serious but determined. "Today we face our enemy," he said. "We know this land, and we will use that to our advantage. They think we are weak, but they are about to learn how strong we really are." As the soldiers geared up, the sound of alien ships filled the air. The ships were massive, shaped like dark triangles gliding silently over the icy landscape. The aliens inside were confident, looking down at the snow below with eager eyes. They believed they had finally defeated humanity, and nothing could stop them now. One alien commander, Zorak, pointed to the snowy ground. "There's nothing but ice here. We've won! Let's spread out and search for any signs of life." His voice was loud and full of arrogance. He had no idea of the danger lurking just beneath the surface. While the aliens began to explore, the super soldiers moved quickly and quietly through the tunnels of their base. They had been trained to move like shadows, and now was their time to strike. "Remember your training," Mark reminded them. "Stay focused and trust each other. We fight as one." As the aliens stepped into the open air, they noticed the vast white landscape stretching endlessly in front of them. Confident in their numbers, they laughed and joked, convinced of their victory. They wandered into the frozen terrain, looking for signs of human life, completely unaware that danger was closing in on them. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the air. The super soldiers had launched their first attack, using the element of surprise to their advantage. From hidden positions behind ice formations, they unleashed a flurry of laser fire at the aliens. Bright beams of light lit up the snowy battlefield. "Take cover!" Zorak shouted, as the first wave of alien soldiers fell to the ground. Chaos erupted. The aliens, caught off guard, scrambled to find safety. They were shocked at how fierce and determined the soldiers were. Mark led his team with confidence. "Now move in," he ordered. The super soldiers advanced, using the terrain to shield themselves. They worked together seamlessly, covering each other as they pushed forward. Sarah, quick and agile, darted between the ice structures, taking out alien soldiers with precision. The aliens were struggling to regroup. They had expected an easy victory, but the Arctic super soldiers were proving to be a formidable opponent. "They're stronger than we thought," one alien soldier cried, panic in his voice. The tide of battle was turning, and fear began to spread among the alien ranks. Mark and his soldiers pressed on, refusing to back down. They had trained for this moment, and every ounce of their strength and determination surged through them. "For humanity!" they shouted in unison, their voices ringing with hope. In the midst of the battle, Zorak realized that they had underestimated their opponents. "We need to retreat and regroup," he shouted, but the chaos around him made it hard for his orders to reach every soldier. The super soldiers were relentless, pushing forward with unwavering strength. As the battle raged on, the aliens began to fall back, their bravado fading. They had not anticipated the fierce spirit of the human soldiers. The Arctic landscape, once a desolate winter, became a battleground filled with the sounds of conflict and determination. Finally, the aliens turned and fled, scrambling back to their ships in a panic. Mark watched them retreat, a sense of triumph filling him. "We did it!" he exclaimed, turning to his soldiers. "We showed them that humanity is still alive and fighting!" The super soldiers cheered, feeling the rush of victory. They had faced their first encounter and emerged stronger. But Mark knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would not give up easily, and they would return, angrier and more determined. As the sun began to set over the Arctic, the super soldiers stood together, united by their victory. They knew they had sent a clear message to the aliens. Humanity would not be easily defeated. The fight for Earth was far from over, but they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As the Arctic sun rose, casting a golden glow over the snow, the super soldiers gathered in their underground base. They had just won their first battle, but a heavy feeling hung in the air. Mark, their leader, knew they could not celebrate for long. The aliens would come back, and they needed to understand their own legacy to fight effectively. "Today we share our stories," Mark announced, standing before his fellow soldiers. "We must remember why we fight and honor those who came before us." The soldiers looked at one another, each feeling the weight of their mission. Mark began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Before I became a super soldier, I was just a regular man. I had a family, friends, and dreams like anyone else. But when the aliens attacked Earth, everything changed. I lost everything I loved. That's why I fight now, to protect what's left, and to honor those who didn't survive." Lieutenant Sarah stepped forward next. "I was a scientist before all this. I dedicated my life to studying human potential. When the aliens invaded, I volunteered to be part of the Super Soldier program. I wanted to help humanity survive. Each of us here carries a part of that legacy. We are the last hope." One by one, the soldiers shared their stories, each more powerful than the last. Some had been soldiers in the previous war, while others were ordinary people who had stepped up to fight. Each story was a reminder of the sacrifices made for humanity and the strength they carried within them. As they spoke, a sense of unity filled the room. The super soldiers realized they were not just fighters. They were symbols of hope for all those who had suffered under alien rule. They carried the legacy of humanity's spirit, a spirit that refused to be crushed. Meanwhile, in the alien camp, Zorak was fuming with anger. The defeat he suffered at the hands of the super soldiers weighed heavily on him. "They cannot defeat us again," he shouted at his crew. "We must learn more about these soldiers. They fight with a strength we did not expect. We will not make the same mistake again." Back in the underground base, the super soldiers continued to share their stories. Corporal Jake, who had once been a firefighter, spoke of his bravery. "I saved lives every day. That's what I wanted to do. And now I'm here to save humanity." His words echoed through the room, filling everyone with determination. After sharing their legacies, Mark proposed a plan. "We must train harder. We need to honor our past by becoming even stronger. The aliens will return and we will be ready." The soldiers nodded, their spirits renewed. They understood that they were not just fighting for themselves, but for the future of humanity. As they began their training, the atmosphere changed. The soldiers pushed each other to their limits, using their unique skills to grow stronger. They practiced tactics, weaponry, and teamwork, ensuring they would be ready for the next battle. The memories of those they had lost fueled their fire. Days turned into weeks as the soldiers honed their abilities. They became a well-oiled machine, each soldier trusting the others implicitly. They developed strategies that used the Arctic landscape to their advantage, finding hidden pathways and vantage points that would help them in the fight ahead. One evening, after a long day of training, the soldiers sat together reflecting on their journey. Mark looked around at his team, pride swelling in his heart. "We are more than just super soldiers. We are the embodiment of humanity's spirit. We carry the dreams and hopes of all those who came before us. Together, we will fight and protect what is left of our world." With that, the super soldiers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were ready to confront the aliens once again. They understood that they were not just warriors, they were a legacy, a living testament to humanity's resilience and strength. As they prepared for the battles to come, the soldiers vowed to honor their past. They would fight not just for survival, but for the memory of those who had fallen. The super soldiers knew that their legacy would live on through every battle they fought, a legacy that would inspire future generations to rise against any enemy that threatened their home. The Arctic wind howled outside the underground base as the super soldiers prepared for their next move. After weeks of intense training, they were ready to counterattack. Mark, their leader, stood before the team, his face determined and confident. "The aliens will come back. We have learned from our last encounter, and now we will strike back with everything we have." The soldiers nodded in agreement, their spirits high. They knew this was their chance to take the fight to the enemy. The plan was simple yet bold. They would lure the aliens into a trap and then strike hard and fast. As night fell, the super soldiers set up their defenses near an abandoned research facility. The area was perfect for their plan. The darkened building would provide cover, and the surrounding ice formations would serve as natural barriers. "We will use our knowledge of the land," Mark explained. "They think they know us, but we will outsmart them." Meanwhile, Zorak, the alien commander, was furious. After the recent defeat, he was determined to crush the humans once and for all. "They think they can win this war," he bellowed at his troops. "Prepare for the attack. We will show them the true power of our forces." The alien ships roared into the Arctic sky, their engines blazing. Zorak led the charge, confident that his forces would reclaim their lost honor. As the alien ships approached the research facility, the super soldiers lay in wait, their hearts pounding with anticipation. "Get ready," Mark whispered, signaling to his team. The soldiers were positioned behind ice formations, laser rifles at the ready. They could hear the distant sound of the alien ships, growing louder with every second. As the first alien ship landed, the soldiers held their breath. Zorak stepped out, his eyes scanning the area. "Search the area," he commanded. "We will find them!" In that moment, Mark raised his hand. "Now," he shouted. The super soldiers sprang into action, rushing from their hiding spots and unleashing a barrage of laser fire. Bright beams lit up the night sky as they targeted the alien soldiers, who were caught completely off guard. Chaos erupted. The aliens scrambled for cover, but the super soldiers had the advantage of surprise. Sarah took the lead, expertly dodging incoming fire as she advanced towards the enemy. "Keep pushing forward!" she yelled, rallying her teammates. The super soldiers moved with precision, using the terrain to their advantage. They fought as one, their training paying off. One by one, the aliens fell, their arrogance quickly fading into fear. Zorak realized he had underestimated his opponents once again. "Retreat!" Zorak shouted, but it was too late. The super soldiers pressed on, their spirits ignited by the thrill of battle. Mark could see the aliens faltering, and he pushed his team harder. "Don't let up! We can end this tonight." The fighting continued, fierce and relentless. The super soldiers moved through the enemy lines, taking out alien soldiers left and right. They had transformed from mere survivors into skilled warriors, driven by the need to protect their home. In the midst of the chaos, Zorak felt a surge of desperation. "We must regroup! Fall back to the ships!" he shouted, but his orders fell on deaf ears. Panic spread among his troops as they faced the relentless attack from the humans. Mark spotted Zorak among the chaos and made a decisive choice. "We have to finish this," he said, charging towards the alien commander. The other super soldiers followed, a wave of determination propelling them forward. Zorak, sensing the danger, tried to escape, but Mark was faster. They met in the center of the battlefield, the clash of their wills echoing in the icy air. "This is for all of humanity!" Mark shouted, raising his weapon. But Zorak was fierce, his eyes filled with rage. "You think you can defeat us? We are invincible," he roared, preparing to fight back. Just as the two leaders prepared to clash, the rest of the super soldiers surrounded Zorak, their weapons aimed with unwavering precision. Zorak realized he was trapped. "No! This cannot be!" he screamed, panic filling his voice. With one final push, the super soldiers unleashed their firepower, overwhelming Zorak and forcing him to surrender. The aliens, witnessing their commander's defeat, turned and fled, abandoning the battlefield. As the last of the alien ships disappeared into the night sky, the super soldiers erupted in cheers. They had not only defended their home, but had dealt a significant blow to their enemy. Mark looked around at his team, filled with pride. "We did it! We showed them that humanity is not to be underestimated." The night air rang with their victory, echoing their determination and courage. They had taken the fight to the aliens, and for the first time, they felt hope for the future. But they also knew that the war was far from over. The counterattack was just the beginning of their struggle, and they were ready for whatever came next. The Arctic air was thick with tension as the super soldiers prepared for the final showdown against the alien forces. After their recent victory, they knew the aliens would return, more determined than ever. Mark stood at the front of their underground base, rallying his team for the battle that would decide the fate of humanity. "This is it," he said, his voice firm. "We've pushed them back once, but they will come back stronger. We must end this fight today. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has suffered under their rule." The soldiers nodded, their faces set with determination. They had trained hard and proven their skills. Now they were ready to face the alien commander, Zorak, and his forces. Mark had learned from their last encounter, and this time they would be prepared. As dawn broke, the soldiers gathered their weapons and gear. Each soldier felt a mix of excitement and fear. They knew the stakes were high, but they had each other. "Together we can do this," Sarah reminded them, her voice steady. They moved out, heading toward a ridge that overlooked the icy plains. From there, they could see the alien ships approaching, dark shapes against the bright sky. Zorak had returned, and he was angry. "Prepare for battle!" Zorak shouted to his troops, his voice booming. "We will crush these humans once and for all. They will learn that we are the true rulers of this world." The alien ships landed, and soldiers began to pour out, their weapons ready. Mark and his team took their positions, hidden behind snow-covered mounds. They could feel the tension in the air as the two forces prepared to clash. "Remember our training," Mark reminded them. "We are not just fighting for ourselves, we are fighting for humanity. Stay focused." As the aliens advanced, Mark raised his hand. "Now!" he yelled. The super soldiers sprang into action, firing their weapons with precision. Bright beams of light filled the air as they targeted the alien soldiers, who were caught off guard once again. The battle erupted with fierce intensity. The super soldiers fought bravely, moving as a unit, covering each other's backs. They dodged incoming fire, returning shots with accuracy. The cold air was filled with the sounds of battle, shouts, explosions, and the whir of lasers. Zorak roared in anger as he witnessed his troops falling. "Push forward!" he commanded, charging into the fight. But Mark was ready for him. "We need to take down Zorak," he shouted to his team. They made their way through the chaos, determined to reach the alien commander. Sarah led the charge, her eyes locked on Zorak. "We can end this!" she yelled, adrenaline pumping through her veins. Zorak saw them coming and gritted his teeth. "You think you can defeat me?" he spat, raising his weapon. The two forces collided in a fierce clash, the fight becoming personal as Mark and Zorak faced off. "Your time is over!" Mark shouted, his weapon raised. Zorak fired first, but Mark ducked just in time. He retaliated, firing back at the alien commander. The two exchanged blows, each strike filled with the weight of their causes. The super soldiers fought with all their might, but Zorak was relentless. He pushed back, sending one soldier flying. "You are weak! You do not understand the power of my kind." Zorak roared, but Mark felt a fire inside him. "You underestimate us," Mark yelled, finding strength in his team. He dodged another blast and shot at Zorak again, hitting him in the shoulder. Zorak staggered, but he quickly regained his footing. Seeing their leader wounded, the remaining alien troops faltered. The super soldiers rallied around Mark, pushing forward with renewed energy. "Together!" Mark called out, and they advanced on Zorak. With a final surge of determination, the super soldiers overwhelmed Zorak. They surrounded him, their weapons trained on the alien commander. "This ends now!" Sarah shouted, and Mark stepped forward. Zorak, realizing he was outnumbered, snarled in defeat. "You may have won this time, but we will return," he spat defiantly. But Mark stood tall, his gaze unwavering. "Not if we can help it." With a swift motion, he fired, and Zorak fell, defeated. The remaining alien forces, seeing their leader's defeat, turned to flee. The super soldiers cheered, their voices echoing across the icy landscape. They had done it. They had defeated the alien invaders. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the battlefield, Mark and his team stood together, proud of their victory. They had fought for their legacy and for humanity's future. "This is just the beginning," Mark said, looking at his comrades. "We will protect our world, no matter the cost." They knew they would face new challenges ahead, but united, they felt ready for whatever came next.